Hey there, this is Michelle from Indie Author Blueprint. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a topic every author needs to understand before they publish their book. I've covered this before, but I'm revisiting it because I keep seeing confusion, both in my inbox and in online articles and posts on social media, about the terms vanity press, hybrid publisher, and independent publishing. Some authors are getting steered in the wrong direction, and I want to clear things up. Maybe you've seen companies offering to publish your book if you pay them a fee, and you're wondering, how is that different from being an indie author? Or how is it different from working with a true hybrid publisher? Let's break it down. First, why definitions matter. Not all publishing models are created equal. And if you don't know the difference, you could spend thousands of dollars and still lose control of your book. You might think you're becoming an independent author when you've really signed away your rights. Today, we'll look at three publishing paths: vanity presses, legitimate hybrid publishers, and then indie authors who set up their own imprint and hire contractors. By the end, I hope you'll know how to spot the red flags and what to look for in a legitimate partner and how to make sure you keep control of your work. First, let's look at vanity presses. The term vanity presses has been around for a long time. Back when I started attending writers' conferences decades ago, anything an author did on their own was labeled as vanity publishing. Thankfully, things have evolved since then, but vanity presses still exist, and they thrive on authors who don't know the difference. A vanity press makes money from you, the author, not from selling books to readers. Their business model is built on charging authors high upfront fees for publishing packages. Those packages sound shiny: editing, cover design, distribution, even marketing. But here's what usually happens. Let's talk about some of the red flags that show us that something might be a vanity press. Number one, they accept everyone. If you can pay, you're in. No editorial review, no gatekeeping. A legitimate publisher, whether traditional or hybrid, is selective. And let me just do a little aside right here to talk about a traditional publisher, or also called a royalty publisher. This is where the publisher assumes all the risks, financial and all of the time investment to get a book published, and then they earn from when the book sells, and they pay you a royalty on that after they've earned back what they've invested in it. And that's why this model is different. So when I talk about traditional, that's what I mean. I've covered it in other episodes, so we don't need to go into it in full detail here, but just want you to know that we're not talking about the ones where you submit your manuscript, you get the acceptance letter, they are covering all of the financial costs of it. In the end, I'll give you a little caveat on that too. So that was my little rabbit trail. Let's come back to the red flags. Red flag number 2, you do a lot of the work, maybe most of the work. The editing might be only a little bit of a proofread with a vanity press, and maybe there's no editing at all and they call it editing. The cover design might be outsourced to the cheapest freelancer and one of those companies that you can hire for $99, but they hire them. What they provide is often no better than what you can find on Fiverr or 99 Designs or Get Covers or something like that. And then they give it to you at a huge markup. So it might be one person actually who's outsourcing those things, but their profit is based on the package they're selling you. Okay, so then leading into that, another red flag, they profit then from the fees, not the sales. Once you've paid, they're done. Whether you sell 10 books or 10,000 does not affect them. It doesn't matter because you've paid them, and it might be a really big amount of money, not just the actual costs of what it would be to get the work done, like hiring a contractor. We'll talk about that in a minute, but an actual huge markup to this big package. Could be $10,000, could be more. I've seen some that are 20,000. But once you've paid them that money, they're done. It doesn't matter how many books you sell because you've paid for it. So then the red flag here is that they have no real investment. They don't put their own money or their time into promoting your book. They just take that package money and then they move on. Another red flag is high fees, then low value. Authors might pay huge amounts of money to get a contract that looks impressive but delivers very little more than a template cover and a basic Amazon upload. And then the final red flag is that they hold your book hostage. And this is the most painful. They publish under their ISBN and not yours. And that means you can't go into the dashboard, you can't see your sales, you can't adjust your pricing, or you can't easily move your book elsewhere. And if they disappear or stop communicating, then your book is trapped. And the reason I bring this up, obviously, if you traditionally publish, it's also under their ISBN, but that's a whole different thing. I just said they're the ones dependent on your book sales to earn their money. That's different. But with a vanity publisher, if they publish under their ISBN, it means that you can't do anything with that content while that book is currently an active record. And if you try to just re-release it, you're going to be seen as the one who's actually stealing content. So in order to get a book from a vanity press and to re-release it in your own name, your own ISBN, you have to get a letter from them that says they don't hold that record anymore. I've worked with some authors who've had to do that. And there are some people who their book's published and they go online, and instead of where the cover's supposed to be, there's just a black box and some white lettering. It's a placeholder for a cover. The cover never got uploaded, and I don't know what the print copies look like then when that happens. I've seen some where the pricing is so crazy high, no one's buying the book. Some vanity publishers just basically publish it and wash their hands of it and move on. Some of them still make some money if you buy author copies from them, and they're going to charge you a lot more money for those author copies, which ends up making it more expensive for you. When I say author copies, I mean the ones that you buy at cost or at wholesale, and then you resell when you speak, or you're doing like a book table somewhere. Like I like to do that once in a while at a craft show kind of a thing. I want to get those at cost if possible. And I know some publishers sell them at 50% off the cover price. That's understandable. I know some that do that. But when you're the independent author and you're the one ordering them, you pay the $4.50 for printing plus shipping, and then they come to you, and then you can mark them at the cover price to sell them on your book table. But there are some vanity presses that make it so you can hardly get those under the retail price. They might take 20% off, but that doesn't really help you very much. The most concerning thing is when a vanity company just ditches the author. Your book is published, it's out there, and then the communication becomes really difficult. You can't fix something that was done wrong. I've seen things done where the wrong author name is listed on the copyright page, and it's really hard to get them to fix those things. And I've seen authors who just move on, and they feel hopeless after a while because they're kind of stuck. So be really careful. And you might want to check with some people who have worked with a particular vanity press just to see. You'll see some feedback. Feedback is really important because that's how word of mouth is really a big influencer for me when I'm making those decisions. So don't just pick a company that you've never heard of and pay the money and move forward. Okay, now let's talk about legitimate hybrid publishers. Let's contrast that. Hybrid publishing is a middle ground between traditional publishing, where they are the ones investing in the book project, the process of getting it published, and indie, where you're the one. In between here is this partnership, an emphasis on the word partnership. A legitimate hybrid publisher is selective, and this is the difference. A vanity press takes everything. They don't even care if it's quality or ready to be published, if it's readable a lot of the times. With a hybrid publisher, they're selective. They don't take every manuscript. They uphold the quality standards to protect their brand, and they know that if your book isn't ready, you need to do some more work on it. Be also really, really leery, though, of any hybrid publisher that says your book isn't ready and now we're going to sell you a giant coaching package to get your book ready, because that's also a big red flag. Be careful of spending tons and tons of money to get to the place the hybrid publisher says you're supposed to be. That would be a red flag, and I've seen that happen as well. So A hybrid publisher, though, is selective. And I want to tell you that as somebody who's a contractor who does some editing, book covers formatting for authors, I don't take everything that comes across my desk either. Not every person that asks me if they can hire my services for their book project, not everybody's ready for publishing. And I'm not going to lie to people and say, "Oh, sure, let's put this out there." That's like the emperor has no clothes story. We're not going to do that to people. We want to uphold their dignity. So, a hybrid publisher is going to offer professional services like expert editing, cover design, formatting, distribution, and sometimes even marketing support. Now, you're going to share the risk. You're going to pay some production costs, maybe a lot of the production costs, but they invest time and resources too. And in the end, their profits depend on your book selling because that's part of their model. So they're not just charging you $10,000 and that's the end. They might charge you a much, much smaller amount. If they're charging a lot more, they might be a vanity publisher, so be careful. But they're asking you to partner with them to get your book out there. They can get your book into bookstores, libraries, specialty markets, something that most indie authors can't do on their own. And that's true of me as an indie author. My book's not in all the places. I've explained in previous episodes why that's okay and why I don't have the expectation that every single book belongs in specialty markets and libraries and brick and mortar bookstores. But that's for another day. You can find those episodes out there on Indie Author Blueprint on Substack. The challenge is that many vanity presses disguise themselves as hybrids, so you have to do your homework. They call themselves that, but they're not. When you really dig in, or you ask other authors who've worked with them, or you start to look at the contract, those red flags when they come up tell you that this could be somebody that's claiming to be a hybrid publisher, but they're using a vanity model. So you want to ask questions and know what you're getting for that. What you're paying for, you want to know. And when you're looking at the partnership, you would expect from a legitimate hybrid publisher that they're not going to just drop off the face of the planet, that they're going to be alongside of you throughout the process of selling and marketing this book. One thing you might find when you go exploring different publishers is there are some that have multiple models for their publishing house. So they might have one business name and they might be a traditional publisher where they take a small number of traditional books every year. And then they also have a hybrid model and they might have a different imprint name on that. And that's a partnership publishing where they take some of the risk, but not as much to help you get your book out there. And I know we get so desperate sometimes to achieve our goals that we become easy victims. And so a little bit of language that gives us hope has us going in a direction sometimes where we get stuck with like a vanity press or someplace that we regret. And so I'm here to tell you, think about it carefully, read the contract carefully, and make sure that you're not stuck with regret later. The third option, the one that I teach in Indie Author Blueprint, is to become both the author and the publisher. We're actually talking about setting up your own publishing imprint. Could be your business name, maybe your ministry name, maybe you just create a fun name for your publishing business. But then you buy your own ISBNs. You're the one directly uploading your files to Amazon, Ingram, Spark, or any other distributors. You hire freelance editors, designers, formatters, whatever you need to fill in the gaps for the skills you don't have. And so you're basically creating this team of people, but they're independent people. They are not the publisher. And an example is something that I do, and on Indie Author Blueprint, I put this content out there because I only work with a small handful of clients. A lot of them are repeat clients that I work with every year. And so I'm not a publisher. I'm not looking for more people that come to me with their projects. I'm putting Indie Author Blueprint out there because I want to help you with some of the things. I can't coach you on one-on-one because I don't have the space to take more clients. So I'm putting that out there. And then I want you to know that with the clients I do work with, they all have their own publishing imprints. I'm not their publisher. I publish my own books. That's a separate thing. But when I'm working with those clients, They are the publisher, and I'm just an independent contractor that they hire. So the only contract they have with me is one that says what services they're getting from me, how much it will cost, and when I'm delivering those services. That's basically similar to a work for hire contract, but it is not a publishing contract. So if you are somebody who's independently publishing, you should have some sort of contracts with the people you're hiring as freelancers to do the things that you need. But if you're getting something from someone who says, we're going to put our publisher name on your book and we're going to do all the work and then we're going to coach you and you're going to upload it to Amazon, you're actually letting them put their branding on your book and you're doing all the money and all the work behind the scenes. That's not a publisher. And if they come to you with some sort of contract and they want you to sign it and make it like, you've got a publishing contract for your book, they're just tricking you into believing that you have that when actually you're just hiring them. So be very, very careful with those things. Traditional publishers will offer you a contract and it will say what they're doing and how much they're paying you. Hybrid publishers might offer you a contract. It might say how much you're paying, how much they're paying, and what they're doing for you. And in independent publishing, the only contract you should be getting is from somebody who's just doing contracted work for you, like a 1099 hire. I hope I've made that super clear. Now, if you are running essentially a small publishing house for your books, the advantage is full control. You own the ISBN because you're going to get that from Bowker. You're not going to take the freebies from KDP or Ingram Spark. You're going to buy it and register it yourself. You're going to see your sales data. You're going to set your pricing. You'll buy your author copies at print cost. It's going to have your brand, not someone else's, on your book. The risk here is that if you skip steps, like you DIY everything, you've essentially become your own vanity press. I said that already, but I just want to make that clear. The difference here is professionalism. You're building a real publishing team rather than cutting corners. Okay, let's wrap up. I could spend all day talking about this, and it's going to come up in another episode because I'm super passionate about teaching about this. I want you to know, though, that there are different views on this, and you're going to see that there are going to be people who won't spell it out the same way that I do, and that's okay because I think it's kind of a muddy water here. I've done a lot of homework, so that's why I'm telling you what I found through research. And because I'm not selling services to you or trying to get you to buy a book package from me, I hope that you'll see that you can trust that I'm in your shoes. I'm on the other side of it as the indie author publisher. And so I'm not trying to sell you on a package. And therefore, I hope that you'll see that what I want you to do is look at all the details and not get scammed by anybody. So the question isn't whether you'll spend, it's how you'll spend and whether you'll still hold the rights and the control you want. And when I say that you're always going to spend, I'm going to come back to what I hinted at the beginning of this episode when I said that even traditionally published authors spend some money. I've had some hire me to do some editing before they send their book in to the publisher, even though the book is already accepted and has a contract from that publisher. They want to get their chapters cleaned up so they look a lot more like the sample chapters they sent. So they didn't just give them these really neatly polished sample chapters and then they send in a book that's really rough. And so sometimes they're spending their own money out of their pocket to hire some editors ahead of time. Sometimes I've had ones who have asked for some coaching. I know authors who are spending money on their marketing. They're getting some from their traditional publisher, but they're having to spend a lot of their money on marketing as well. So just know that there is no option that is free, free, free. Everything involves some investment of time or money from you, and it's just which one is the right one for you. Do you want to be the one who owns all the control? Some people want that. That's me. I'm kind of a control freak. Do you want a partner who shares the risk because you don't want to manage the business side? That's legitimate. Maybe you don't want to be a business or / publisher owner. Totally understandable why you'd want a hybrid company so that you could do that. Or are you just paying for convenience even if it means giving up control? I don't know that I'd advise that because then you're leaning into that vanity press area. If you love the entrepreneurial side, then indie publishing with your own imprint may be perfect. And if you want a partner but not the full burden, then the legitimate hybrid could be worth exploring. All right, so as you look at all of this and you weigh out your options, I want you to remember that you deserve transparency, you deserve real partnership and a publishing journey where you understand what's happening and you're not bluffed by somebody else. I want to thank you for listening today, and I want to let you know again that Indie Author Blueprint is on Substack. There are more posts, more resources. I have all kinds of how-tos there. There's a lot of free content and some that's for paid subscribers. So if you have questions after reading all of this and you find me on Substack, feel free to comment on the episode and you can see if there's any more input I can offer you. Sometimes I can steer you in a direction that will help you take that next step. All right, thanks for listening today, and I'll see you next week with another episode.